Hi, how are you? I'm Kinga from Inner Luminescence, and today's topic is your fate really belongs to you? And we're gonna look at it from the point of view of systemic family constellations and systemic work. And first thing is what is fate? So fate is looked at in systemic work as something that is predetermined and it's outside of the person's control. And so it sounds a little bit difficult to work with, but when we ask the question, is your fate belongs to you or not, I have to say that yes and no. So some of it, yes, obviously belongs to us, and then some of it is, even though it's almost difficult to believe, but some of it is inherited from our family system. So we're not an island, as we know. So when we are born into our family of origin, and that family of origin is also, they belong to a bigger family, then they belong to a certain tribe, we belong to a certain country, so we have a nationality, we have a race, we have different identities, and kind of this system gets bigger and bigger, and every level of the system carries its own fate. And we arrive. So yes, we have our own fate, but we already inherited all this fate around us, which surround us on the different levels. So that's a lot of fate, and it's a lot of things to carry, and a lot of them we are not responsible for, and it's actually not even ours. So that part, the good news is that part we can honor it and put it down, and this is what the systemic work is about. So this is how we can change from having our fate, we can change it into our destiny, because destiny means that we consciously do something with our fate, and we decide what we do with it. So why would we actually choose to take on all these maybe difficult fates what surrounds us? Why don't we just come and arrive and we look around and we say, thank you very much, I don't want this, I'm gonna live my life according to what is the best for me, and this I don't like, and this I keep, and because we could do that. So the reason we can't do that, or we don't do that, because there are certain rules what the Bert Hellinger, who is the father of the systemic family constellations, he recognized that there are certain rules in the system which apply to all family systems, and one of them is that we yearn to belong in the somewhere. We have this yearning, and it's actually, according to the systemic work, it's all given right to belong to the system where we were born into. So that we don't have to fight for it. There is our fate, but it's also our right that if we belong to a family, then we always gonna belong to this family. We always gonna be part of this system. So there is no such a thing that like somebody is pushed out of the family system. There is, we're going to talk about it now, there is, obviously it happens in life, but the system itself doesn't recognize that. As soon as something like that happens, it's going to upset the system and it's going to bring in the fate. So we yearn to belong, and we can belong on a good way, and we can belong on a not so good way. And the not so good way is that the good way, okay, let's talk about the good way first. Good way is that we recognize that it is our right to belong, but not just that if we have the right to belong, then everybody who's ever been part of the system, who belongs to the family, has the right to belong. So it doesn't just apply to us, it also applies to all the other family members, including so whoever once been been born, or not even didn't have to be born, but because miscarriages and abortions and stillbirths, they also considered that these children, they're part of the system. So when you arrived into the system, from that moment you are part of the system, and everybody has the right, not just us. So the good way to look at it, it's wonderful, I have the right to belong, and it's wonderful that I can recognize that everybody else also has the right to belong. Then the not so good way of belonging is when we're yearning for this belonging but we don't feel it, or we feel that somebody was pushed out, so the system is missing somebody. So we look up. I know it sounds a little bit, but because system is also looking for balance, but we recognize that fate of somebody who was not included, let's say, in the system, and we get entangled with that person's fate. It's a little bit difficult to explain, but this is what happens. We look up, we want to belong, we say that that person belongs to the system. If I want to be like her, if I want to show my love to my mom and I want to belong, maybe she had cancer, maybe I'm also gonna manifest cancer, so we're the same and we have the same fate, and everybody can see that there is a very strong connection between mom and daughter. I even try to carry your sickness for you, mom. And we do this obviously subconsciously, so we not consciously decide that, oh, mom was sick, I'm also gonna be sick. We subconsciously, to belong, we carry that fate. So we have the same fate, so we are the same, so we belong to the same tribe. So when we're the same, we connected through this sameness. Then another thing that comes into play, there is a certain order. So everybody has their rightful place in systemic work, and if we're not on our rightful place, we cannot live our own fate. We're gonna live somebody else's fate, whose ever place we are occupying, and or think that is our rightful place, but it's actually not. So what a good example would be if a firstborn child, let's say the firstborn child has passed away. It was a miscarriage, it was an abortion, it was stillbirth, whatever it is, but this firstborn child is not with us anymore. Obviously, the system says this child is always going to be here, like I said the previous time. But here comes the second child, who stays and grows up and constantly carries the responsibility of the oldest, the first child. But this person is actually not the first one, but not the firstborn, but the secondborn. So the fate of the firstborn ever so slightly differs from the fate of the secondborn. The responsibility is different. Like we know traditionally the firstborn is gonna carry the responsibility of looking after all the younger siblings. If it happens to be a boy, it carries the name and the legacy of the family. So let's say this firstborn was a boy who didn't stay, and the secondborn or second child, let's say, doesn't have to be, this one doesn't have to be born, remember. So second child is a girl. So there is a double whammy for this girl, because traditionally family system says that you are the head of the family, first born child or first child. So she is not the first child. She is also not a boy. So she can't carry the name further, but she tries to be. So we often see with the firstborn girl, who is actually a second child, or sometimes there's a lot of miscarriages before, that they try to carry the fate, what would belong to this first child, who was a boy. I hope if it's not clear, you can just send me an email. So on Inner Luminescence, you can find me on my website, and then you can send me an email and I answer you. Maybe we can talk it through. But so literally, this is when your placement is not right. You can try to carry a certain fate, a certain responsibility which doesn't belong to you. Same thing happens if, let's say, the father abandons the family, so mom stays on her own, and they happen to have a son who would be a child, am I right? So mom looks after, dad looks after child, but suddenly there is no male figure around mom. So what happens very often, that the boy comes up to the place of the father and starts to carry the fate of the male figure as an adult, not as a child. The responsibilities, and what happens later on in life. Now this boy has grown up and looking for a partner, but first, mom occupies this place. Second, he already has so many responsibilities with his family of origin. He has no place left for his new family. So if he would have stayed a child, then none of this happens. So that's how, like replacements, if you move to a different order where you're supposed to be, then suddenly that place brings with itself a certain fate which is not yours. And it can be too much and too difficult to carry, and the feeling it comes in real life is that exactly that. overwhelm, maybe a constant overwhelm, a constant workaholic can come. Let's say if you try to replace the first child, being workaholic, because I have to look after everybody, I have to carry the fate of the family, I have to be able to provide for all the siblings, so all of these things. So this is with the order of the family. And then there is also, we often see that when we work, that people are financially not as successful as they could be. They try everything and it's just not happening. So there is another rule, or yes, order, that is called the equal give and take. So it's obviously not just financial, it's also emotional and support and providing and all of these things, but it's most often it's gonna come out with, we're gonna see it with financial lack of success and difficult to manifest finances. So let's say a good example would be that if there had been somebody in our family line who, I've seen a constellation, so let's say this is a very good example, that this lady was anorexic and she didn't know how to help it, and when the system, we work in the system, and it turned out that the family comes from Europe, and I mean Europe is now very wealthy, but it never used to be so wealthy. So countries, Germany used to starve, Italy used to starve. So her family, actually, she had family members back in Europe who starved to death. And she was honoring their fate. So we often do that when we look at the family system. We look up and we say, oh, this person had such a difficult fate. Maybe if I also limit myself, this is how I'm gonna honor what happened with them. And this is not what obviously the system wants from us and our ancestors want from us. They want us to thrive, but it feels not right if this person had such a difficult fate that they didn't have money so much that they were starving. Somehow I have to make sure that I'm honoring their fate by repeating it. So with the equal give and take, it's very worthwhile, like in your family system, to have a look if there may be something like unfair. If you happen to be struggling financially, then if maybe there is an unfair, maybe inheritance was not given, maybe lobola was not paid, maybe land was taken away. So all of these things where something's supposed to have gone to the, let's say the firstborn supposed to have inherited the farm, but the secondborn got it and the firstborn was pushed out of the system. Again, order. Remember, everybody has their rightful place. So if the firstborn is traditionally is the one who inherits, then if it goes to the secondborn, it's gonna have a ripple effect, not on a good way in the system. So now fate. So how to change it to destiny? And then we do work like in the systemic work when we look at fate. We're looking for repeating patterns, because that often shows us that a fate is being repeated, and more than probably then there is something which is not supposed to be happening, but it is happening again and again and again from generation to generation. And there is something where somebody said that, I don't think you're strong enough to carry your fate, so I'm gonna help you carry. I'm gonna do exactly like that in my life, what you had. So instead of saying that I honor your fate and I give it back to you with respect, and I'm strong enough, and I see that you're strong enough, and I will carry my own fate. So obviously we often not recognizing these patterns, but it's worthwhile to have a look at the pattern, when something is repeating itself. Sorry, it's more than probably gonna show that this doesn't belong to you, or some of it not, and there is a possibility to hand it back where it belongs. So what is the difficult thing about it? I mean, it sounds easy. I'm like, I don't want it. Why would I want something which blocks me? Why would I want somebody's difficult fate when mine is enough for me? So what happens that every family system, we have stories going around. So just think about it. Can you imagine if you were born into a society, a family, where they say that we all have to struggle? We're coming from this great struggle. So, and now you would go and be successful. Do you feel that you fully belong? Are you the same? Because remember, when you're same, then it's safe, then you're safe in society, so then you can relax, or seems like you can relax. So what is the story in your family? Does it have a story? Like, what do you say to yourself? What is the album you playing in your head? So if you look at life as a record player, and there is an album. So when you're a child, you get an album where the whole family tells you all the belief systems, all the stories, not just the genetic material, what you brought, but if you go back to my previous talk, that is about epigenetics and genetics. And so through behavior and teaching, we learn certain rules, that this is how we are. This is our family, we hard-working people, and the ones who get money easy, those are lazy, those people. No, we have to be like this, and we always work so hard for our money. And then here we sit and say like, oh, I don't know what's happening. I work so hard, and even then I'm not getting money. So that there were different opportunities, different life, different things. Even a generation before, the opportunities were different. So you don't have to play the same album. So, but can you let go? Can you change, take off the old album and put a new one on? So one good example would be is, because it's quite, unfortunately, often happens, especially here in Africa, that there is a great amount of children who's being abandoned by their father. So often don't even know their father. So the story is that my father didn't want to do anything with me. He doesn't love me. He's abandoned me. He doesn't care about me. Doesn't never provided for me. He doesn't deserve to be a father, which is all true. It's all true. But actually, with keeping the story, you're keeping the fate of an abandoned little child who has nobody to care for, who cannot provide for himself, herself, who doesn't have his father's love. Now, family constellations give an opportunity to change your fate and change the dialogue in your head and say that I do have a father, because without him I would not be here. He gave me life, and that's all what he could give me. He gave me the biggest gift. And today, I take my life. I take my life from here. And I do what I want with it. So this is the biggest choice. To be able to make the choice to change the album, to change the story, to change fate, and change it into destiny, and change it into a positive destiny. Because fate belongs more to the past, and destiny belongs into the future. You're destined to be somebody. You're destined to have the best of the life you can ever have. And truthfully, that is your real fate. To live your life to the fullest, according to your fate, according to the responsibilities you should be carrying. And yes, no, it's not possible. I mean, life is gonna happen. So, like the virus happened, okay? So, it's not possible. We all have our own fate. It's not, life happens. Life is about growth. So, life is about to bring its own challenges. And we have our own fate. We have to deal with it, how we deal with it. But at least, by changing the story, by really looking at it and not taking it on face value, we can change our fate and we can give back what is not ours, what belongs to our family line, our tribe, our country, our race, our generation, whatever is not ours, we can give it back. So I think, what I would like you to take from this talk, that yes, fate is predetermined, but your fate is not. You have every tool to change it, and I wish you good luck, strength and determination, courage, and love. Love towards yourself and love towards the others. And losing judgment. A non-judgmental, loving, new fate which you create for yourself. So thank you for listening to my talk. Sorry about that. I didn't want to go into victim and perpetrator, maybe on the next talk. It's nice to have you here, and I have previous talks with the Mind and Body conferences if you want to have a look. And thank you very much. Bye bye.